Hello everyone, ESBR Boxing. You join myself, my esteemed colleague, my compatriot, my friend Owen here today. We are here on the morning of the super fight that is Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. Obviously undefeated, undisputed. We're sort of looking at that at the moment. Someone's always got to go and all that jazz. And we're here for a final prediction video. I'll join Owen for the first prediction video that he's welcoming us on. So he steps up to the plate and was a very close fight. Other people have shied away to give his thoughts on it. Owen, come to you now and say, let's just get straight into it. Obviously, we don't need to do much of introduction. Everyone knows who these two guys are. We've covered a lot, obviously, on this channel already, content wise, for this fight. We've had the weigh in, obviously, very respectful. We've had the press conference, less respectful. Let's get your initial thoughts on who you think's potentially come through the weight cut better, who you think's performed better so far, and who maybe having the advantage, having coming through so far on the weight cut and the press conference, please.
I'll be honest, the weight cut, I think Crawford looks better. I think Spence himself has said this is his final fight at the weight, and then he's done. And I think you can see he is quite big for the weight, but you can see he looks fairly gaunt. Sometimes I try and read into it, other times I don't. Obviously, he's had his issues with the car crash, etc. So I think the weight cut's really taken it out of him. So it is sort of, I do believe it is his last fight at the weight. I'll be honest, all my opinions on how the weigh-in and press conferences, etc., affected everything changed when Errol Spence thanked Crawford for making the fight, and then Crawford basically thanked him back, saying "We're both here," sort of thing. So all the build-up, all the trash talk, everything, I was sort of weighing my opinions up, and then they both done that. I was like, that's genuinely just threw everything I had out the window. So the only thing I've really got to go off, I think, if we're looking at weigh-ins, I think Crawford definitely weighed in the better man.
Are you a fan of like you say, very sort of convivial, very sort of respectful way in yesterday publicly, at least? Are you a fan of that, a fight of this nature? Would you like to see a bit more needle, or do you think this fight, frankly, is big enough to take all that away from it?
It's a tough one because I feel like I'm a fan. I like the trash talking and conferences and the gloves are off and interviews and all that jazz that you do in the build up nowadays. I prefer the respect after. So if you're going to be respectful the whole way through, let it be. So be it. Fair enough. They're two of the best in the world. It's a super fight. So be it. But I just think if you're going to build it up with the trash talk, get fans excited, have the weigh in, have the face off, keep it going. Then after you've had a super fight, then shake hands, touch gloves, and say, "Look what we just did for boxing. We managed to get a super fight in an era where super fights are very few and far between." So I think I'm all for it, but I'd prefer either straight respect the whole way through, or if you're going to trash talk until that final bell goes, touch gloves at the start of the final round, and then be respectful after.
We've seen obviously Crawford, I suppose, get into sort of verbal altercation with people in Spence's team. We've seen both teams actually clash more than we have really the fighters. Do you read anything into that, into Crawford's behaviour there, or do you think it's just a case of the kind of magnitude of the event, maybe a bit of stress expressing itself, or is there nothing really to read into that in your opinion?
I think, like you say, it's just the magnitude of the event. Really, both trainers are. It's when the fighter wins, the trainer also wins. Um, this is a chance for the trainer to have one of the biggest wins they'll probably ever get as a coach or trainer, whichever they prefer to be called or referred to as. So for them, it's not as important, but from a selfish perspective, it is as important. So obviously, when the trainers are getting involved, I think it's difficult not to get yourself involved as well. So I think with the magnitude of the event, how long this has been years in the making, this fight. Let's be honest. So I think it is very difficult not to get involved. I don't think they're not really necessarily trash talkers, but they are big, like massive rivals. They're the two best at the weight, simple as that. So even if you were going to be completely respectful the whole way through, I think the magnitude of the event, there's definitely always going to be a little element of trash talking involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is obviously the prediction show, so we are going to get into some predictions. But before we ask for your prediction, Owen, I'm going to come just and ask you, without giving the prediction, if you can tell me whether, having sort of seen this build up, or any point throughout the sort of build up of this fight, or even the weigh-ins, like we said in the media days, whether your opinion has changed at all, or if you kind of staying steadfast in your prediction from when this fight was made to now.
I'm staying firm with my prediction. I've had my prediction for this for a couple of years. there's been rumours of it obviously for a while, and I've always backed myself and obviously backed this fight out in terms of this fight. The problem for me is I'm sticking to my guns because there's so many questions surrounding this fight. How's Spence going to be at the elite level after obviously he's had the car crash, etc. That's always going to ask questions. Crawford's getting on now. He's in the later stages of his career age wise. Is that going to play a part when he comes into the elite fights? He's not the most active fighter on the planet. So there's all these questions surrounding it. I'm trying not to draw myself into it too much. So I'm sticking to my guns.
We're taking, well, like you said, either taking those questions into account or doing a very, very noble and brave job of avoiding them. Owen, it's now time. Could you please give us a prediction, sir? How do you see this fight playing out?
This genuinely, I stand as the 50-50 fight. It's two of the elite guys, and obviously it's for all the marbles, and it's arguably the most, bar your Furies, Joshua's. There ain't many bigger bragging rights in terms of super fights than this. I'm going with Errol Spence, but controversial one. I'm going on a tight split decision victory. Genuinely think this is one of the best fights you can make in boxing. So I'm so glad it has been made and we're actually here. I think it's one of those that gets to the point now, until you're on fight day, there's always those elements with the way boxing is nowadays. It's like, oh my God, is this fight actually going to happen? So until you actually get to fight day, it's like, right, we're here, we're going. But yeah, Errol Spence on a points victory. And I'm standing by it.
You know what, Owen? I am not going to disagree with you. I've been said in the build up to this fight that I thought Crawford would actually win by a stoppage. But having seen the way in, actually, I flip flopped entirely. I saw the difference in size for
Yeah.
starters. And I think Spence, right, did look a bit, obviously looks a bit unwell at the weight. But having said that, the size difference, when he actually comes in on fight night, I was actually surprised at the difference. It looked noticeable, didn't it? It was quite a noticeable difference in height and reach.
Yeah.
And I just think actually he will have the ability. I think the ability of being, what's it? People that cliche. People always say, like a like a good like big man beats a better smaller man in
Too
that
big,
same
too
way.
strong.
I think they're both so talented. I don't think the difference will
Mm-hmm.
actually have to do something extraordinary for me I don't think he'll stop Spence now. Having said that, and I'm not sure about pointing either. So I'm actually going to join you and say that I think Errol Spence will win on points. Very close fight, like you said. I can see it being a sort of 115, 113, maybe split
Mm-hmm.
decision. I can see it being that close, but yeah, I'm going with that as well. So we are in agreement, Owen. We are in agreement. All I'll say to everyone who's watching this is put your money where you like. Essentially, we've had betting shows on this before. Paul Kelly and the team talking through the odds on this fight as well. We've had obviously reviews and we'll have a review coming up subsequently, but we've had obviously previews of this fight and interviews going into it as well. Deep fight breakdowns of the sector of the like. Check out those on the channel. All I want to say to you though, Owen, is thank you very much for joining me. And again, guys, thank you very much for watching.
Pleasure as always, mate.